to make sure that we remain safe, stable, strong and fair.
As campaigning continues, the Tories are promising to freeze rail fares in real terms for 5 years. The Green Party is calling for England to boycott the 2022 World Cup in Qatar over the country's record on gay and workers' rights. A man who smashed his way into a home and killed a woman in front of a child in North London has been jailed for more than 26 years. Lloyd Byfield stabbed Leanne Duffy in the neck in Walthamstow last September. A woman cyclist killed in an accident with a lorry yesterday near Parliament has been named as a leading figure in the arts world. Moira Gemmell was the former director of design at the V&A. She was the 5th cyclist to die on London's roads so far this year. The Australian Prime Minister has offered the family of legendary cricket commentator Richie Benaud a state funeral following his death at the age of 84. The former Australia Test cricket captain was being treated for skin cancer. He was elected as an honorary member of Lord's Cricket Ground in 1967. MCC President David Morgan says he'll be greatly missed.
One of the best commentators that cricket has ever produced, I think. Wonderful gentleman, warm, humorous, and we shall miss him.
The Mayor of London says measures are in place to improve air quality in London. We're being warned of very high pollution levels because of the warm temperatures, traffic fumes and Saharan dust today. Simon Burkitt, founder and director of Clean Air in London, has been speaking to Petrie.
If you feel symptoms, sort of sore throat, runny eyes and so on, you should consider reducing activity. But at very high along the southeast coast today, really everyone should reduce activity. And of course, if somebody's vulnerable, they ought to be carrying their medication with them.
LBC weather dry and sunny for London and the southeast, highs of 20 degrees. A similar picture for most of the UK. Cloud and the risk of showers moving in later for southern England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Sunnier in Scotland and the north of England, turning breezier this afternoon. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Ros Unwin.
With Sky, if you miss a show because you're working out or working late, you can unmiss it with the UK's biggest range of catch-up channels. That's the Sky difference. Sky. Believe in better. Content depends on subscription. Selected programmes, requires compatible box, minimum 2 megabits per second broadband speed to set up and uses data.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. LBC's Election Call.
And a very good afternoon to you. You're with Petrie Hoskin here and Paul Nuttall, who is the Deputy Leader of UKIP. Now, every week during the campaign, we're giving you the chance to question a senior politician about the issues that matter to you. We'll be hearing from all the main parties as Britain decides. And today, as I said, we're joined by Deputy Leader of UKIP and MEP for the North West of England, Paul Nuttall. Make sure you get your questions ready. 0345 6060 973. So, as I said, straight on, I think we'll just go straight in. Paul Nuttall sitting opposite me here. Are you excited every morning when you get up? You're on the election trail. It's all very exciting, isn't it, Paul?
Not really. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm pretty much fed up of waking up in the morning and hear some new announcement from Miliband or Cameron, or these manufactured fights that they're having, which are set up by their own central offices or American spin doctors. If the Deputy Leader of UKIP is getting bored of this, then I suspect that the majority of the British people are just turning off. Well, it is a challenge because this has been going on now since January the 1st. We've never, ever had an election campaign which has been so long, whereby there's announcements being made every day by the major political parties. And as I say, I just worry that people are beginning to turn off.
You haven't kept quiet either, have you, really?
No, we have. Well, we did, actually. you know, we did in January and February, and we made a conscious decision not to say much in that period because we believed that it would be overkill. So we decided to stand back, let the other two parties beat the hell out of each other and contradict each other and slag each other off. And our idea was to come in late in the game, and I think that's what we've done. And, you know, if you read the narrative in the press at the moment that somehow UKIP's poll ratings are going down, that just doesn't stack up. It's just not true.
I was going to say, maybe that's why you have slipped in the polls.
Well, we haven't. That's the point. We haven't. No, we haven't.
Have you seen the Daily Mail today?
Oh, well, it must be true then.
Well, all the papers, they don't just make up a poll, though.
Well, actually, the Times are saying that, you know, show that we're going up in the polls.
It's Comres. It's a respected polling outfit. You know, they've said that you've slipped. You've fallen from 16.75% poll rate to 12%, equal with the Lib Dems, and everybody, lots of people, commentators talking about the Lib Dems and the state of them. So maybe you keeping quiet hasn't done you any good at all.
Look, Comres, their methodology works against UKIP because they track everything back to the 2010 general election when we got 3%. Politics has changed since then. If you look at where we were in yesterday's TNS poll, we're on 19%. There were another two polls which puts us on 15 and 16. Generally, with the poll of polls, which is the average, we're polling 15%. And if you would have offered me...
But you have polled higher.
Well, we did during the European elections, but if you would have offered me 15% 27 days from the general election, the day after the European elections last year, I would have bitten your hand off.
But I mean, also, there are situations of our polls saying that Nigel Farage's personal ratings are going down as well. You had your moment in the sun, Paul Nuttall. It's over.
I doubt that very much. I mean, this is unprecedented. The days of two-party politics of the last century are over. I think last week's leadership debate went on to prove that. The age of multi-party politics has arrived, and if you're talking about Nigel Farage, down in Thanet South, there has been a poll which suggests that he's behind the Conservative candidate there, which is just completely nonsense, because if you put the name of if you put the name of the candidate next to the party, I think what you find is that we're around 10 percentage points ahead.
Well, listen, I will let you have that, because after all, you are a politician, and we will move on and start taking calls. This is directly to you, Kathy. Paul Nuttall is here. Ask him your question.
Oh, hello, Paul Nuttall.
Hello.
I know it's a privilege to speak to you. I was just going to ask, actually, I agree with a lot of your UKIP's policies, but I'm a bit concerned. Nobody seems to be talking about bringing the policemen back on the beat, and I think that is needed today in our society. All we see is policemen outside of shops waiting for somebody to thieve, but when it comes to crime, we don't see anybody actually on the street anymore. Well,
I'm just going to interject there, Kathy, and say that Labour is pledging to guarantee neighbourhood policing in every area and to protect the number of officers on the beat.
Yeah, I don't really...
Well, you said you hadn't heard anybody say it. I'm just telling you somebody has. Paul, over to you.
Well, we are committed to putting 2,500 more police officers on the front line, on the beat, and we're not talking PCSOs here, Blunkett's bobbies. We're talking real police officers with real powers. And we would fund this by, obviously, we would do away with police and crime commissioners altogether. We believe that they've been a complete waste of money and a political failure.
Is that enough money? Have you costed it properly? That getting rid of them would pay for that?
Well, actually, we are the only political party in this country today that has mapped out where we believe we should go in the next 5 years financially, and we believe we can make savings by doing away with non-essential budgets of around £27 billion. So nobody else can match that. So we have found the money to ensure that things happen. One of the problems that police officers have at the moment is that they're burdened with paperwork. I think there's an immense amount of police officers who spend their time in the back of police stations and not out on the beat because they're filling in forms. And actually, the statistic which I find fascinating is that if you look at the police, and we're not talking at the top of the police service at the moment, but we're talking those who are represented by the Police Federation, the bobbies on the beat, the amount of sickness amongst them is massive. I think there's only teachers that where the rate of sickness is even higher than police officers, and that means that they feel generally downtrodden. They're not being treated correctly by the government and by society as a whole. What we want to see is more bobbies on the beat, but more real bobbies, and we've costed how we'll pay for it.
Thank you very much indeed, Kathy. That was for you. Paul is in Ramsgate. Hello, Paul. Hello, Paul. Paul's here for you.
Oh, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Petrie. Good afternoon, Paul Nuttall.
Good afternoon, Paul.
Yeah, I voted UKIP. I think Nigel Farage is going to win here in South Thanet, and I believe in your policies. Now, the only thing I'm worried about is in the general election, if it's a hung parliament and you have to go into coalition, I'm just hoping you're not going to go with the Conservatives.
Well, I'll answer that straight. UKIP will not be going into coalition with anybody. We've made that perfectly clear, and that is an absolute red line. What we have spoken about in the past is a confidence and supply arrangement, whereby if a government is proposing things that we generally agree with, we will offer them our support, but we want things back as well. And our red line for much of this is that we want a referendum on our membership of the European Union, but we don't want it in 2017, because by then we would have handed over another £50 billion in membership fees to this corrupt organisation.
How are you going to bring it forward any faster than that? These things take time. Ask the Scots.
No, well, actually, they don't really take time, do they? I mean, you can bring this forward and you can do it pretty quickly. And it wouldn't be a problem at all. You know, I don't want to give another £50 billion by 2017 to this organisation. That's it's British taxpayers' money. And equally, you know, how many more people will be coming into the country in that time because we're not controlling our own borders?
You honestly believe you'll be a majority government? You will be a majority government. You won't need to worry about coalitions.
I don't believe that at all. But what we can do is we can hold Cameron's feet to the fire on many issues, just as we can with any other political party. You know, we could end up holding the balance of power in this election, which will give us an immense amount of power, especially if we work alongside, for example, the Democratic Unionist Party, who we have been speaking to at length. But look, you know, we want a referendum, but we want that referendum before December the 31st this year, because, look, you've waited since 1975 for this.
And the Tories are the only ones promising to do it.
Well, actually, I'm not 100% sure that I believe him on this for a number of reasons. One, he said that he would give us a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty, only to renege on it after the European elections in 2009. I don't think he can be trusted.
He did try and get it entrenched in law, didn't he?
Well, the problem actually, his excuse was that you can't have retrospective referendums, right? Which is nonsense, considering that we joined the EEC in 1973 and we had a referendum in 1975. So that was retrospective. So his argument was complete baloney.
But Labour said that they don't make it clear. They don't want it. The Lib Dems don't want it. So it's only the Tories. You should be recommending that people vote Tory.
Well, no, because when we do not trust Mr Cameron on this issue, we do not believe him. He's reneged in the past, and equally, he's talking about a referendum after renegotiation, and there's a number of problems with that as well. Firstly, he's trying to renegotiate with an organisation that has said it doesn't want to renegotiate. He's been told by Merkel, Holland, Juncker, Donald Tusk, the President of the European Council,
they don't want to stay in.
I think UKIP would do very well. The SNP have done all right, haven't he?
Have they?
Well, they're going to take a load of seats.
Hasn't. Paul, just before I get your Paul, thank you very much indeed for your question, and we will get back to your calls in just a moment. Just before the traffic, though, I do want to ask you about Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
A UKIP MEP was heaped praise on President Putin and described him as a strong leader, as party insiders admitted there had been a shambolic start to their election campaign. And Nigel Farage has previously named Mr Putin as a great world leader, but then has said that Russia is now one of the biggest threats to Britain's national security after Islamic State. Where do you stand on Vladimir?
I think he is a reprehensible individual. I don't think anyone can say anything decent about him as a man.
Well,
obviously.
Diane James did.
Well, hold on, let me finish. I think what we're talking about here is Russia's reaction to what's gone on in Ukraine. And I personally don't believe that you can blame Russia for the way it has reacted, because let's not forget, you know, whether you like it or not, the Ukrainian president was democratically elected. He was overthrown by a mob in Kiev waving European Union flags, OK? And some of these people who overthrew him make the BNP and the National Front look pretty liberal. We are talking far-right anti-Semite Nazis here, OK? The European Union then recognised this new government, which was, as I say, brought in via mob rule, but then it refused to recognise the referendum, the democratic referendum in Crimea.
But do you admire what he's done?
No, I don't. I don't admire what he's done, but I can understand why he has done it. And equally, what I want to say about Putin is this. He was the only one who was right about Libya. He was right about Syria. You know, when he was saying, you don't want to remove these secular dictators because what will come next is even worse, and what has come next is fundamental Islam.
So you do kind of agree with what Diane James said?
No, I don't respect him as a man, but I understand what he has done. Okay.
All right, Paul Nuttall. Paul Nuttall, the Deputy Leader of UKIP, is live with me in the studio. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need to put a question directly to him. This is LBC and it's now 2:16.
I'm Mark Rise in the LBC Travel Centre. The M25 is very slow clockwise in patches between junction 8 at Reigate and 16 to the M40. That whole western stretch extremely busy. Anti-clockwise is slow from just after junction 3, the M20, into the Dartford Tunnel. In Greenwich, there's queuing traffic due to a broken down transit van on Blackwall Tunnel approach northbound at Blackwall Tunnel. There's congestion back past the Woolwich Road flyover. In Blackheath, there's a broken down lorry on the A2 Shooters Hill Road eastbound at Prince Charles Road. Congestion currently to Brookmill Road down Deptford Bridge. And in Kent on the A20 main road in Farningham, the road is closed due to an accident between Dartford Road and Millfield Road. Meanwhile, the A20 in New Eltham is slow each way towards the roadworks at 5 ways. A312, the Parkway, is slow moving southbound. Lane 2 is blocked just after Uxbridge Road between Aussie Garvin roundabout and Bilton Way, and it's slow on the A21 into the centre of Lewisham due to the roadworks on the High Street at Lone Pit Vale. The District Line has no service between Whitechapel and Mansion House due to a signal failure at Tower Hill. Keeping London moving, your next travel updates in half an hour.
This is LBC.
My knees were so painful that my doctor kept increasing the strength of my pills. The first time the therapist fitted me with the Apos therapy device, I was taken aback. There was no pain in my knees. I can now walk a lot better than when I started.
Apos therapy is a non-surgical, non-drug and clinically proven treatment for worn, damaged and arthritic knees. Call Apos Therapy for your free assessment on 0800 909 8009 or visit apostherapy.co.uk. Results may vary.
DIY just got cheaper with 50 different tiles for £10 per square metre and Ronseal 5 litre 1-coat fence life 2 for £10. So there's never been a better time to unleash the B&Q in you, because price is just the beginning. Tile offer ends 19th of April. For included tiles and prices, see DIY.com. Ronseal single price £8.92. Offer ends 7th of May.
Got what it takes as a trader? Then get the Which Trusted Trader endorsement. Which, you know, the Consumers Association. Only the very best local traders who pass our rigorous assessment get it. Join them. Become a Which Trusted Trader and get in front of thousands of eyeballs online, and you could get in their local directory. Plus get their logo on all your vans and stuff. So if you're a chippy from Chelmsford, a builder from Barking, or a Sparky from Stanmore and you reckon you've got it, get your mobile out and text TRADER to 80057 now. Got that? Which Trusted Traders? Get ahead. Fees, terms and conditions apply.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
The multi-million-pound Hatton Garden Gems High.
The thing about jewellery is the resale on a stolen jewellery of anything that's any value is next to nothing.
How do you know? I think I've found the Diamond King. It's Mark of Ealing. Get the police round there now.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Every weekday morning from 7 on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, with over 2,000 hotels worldwide.
And a very good afternoon to you. This is LBC and I'm Petrie Hoskin with you until 4 o'clock this afternoon. And live with me in the studio is Paul Nuttall, who's Deputy Leader of UKIP and MEP for the North West of England. Just before we get back to your calls, it has been said that UKIP has had a problem. Yesterday's announcement... designed for the women's vote, is really scrapping a tax on tampons the way, Paul Nuttall, you think that that's going to get the woman vote?
Well, put it this way. Do you think it makes any sense whatsoever to have VAT, 5% VAT on tampons?
I never have, yeah.
When, you know, they're described as a non-luxury
But are there other ways of approaching women? Are there other things about women than that?
I'm led to believe that when I put deodorant on, I don't pay VAT on it because it's seen as non-luxury. But tampons are luxury. So if I don't put deodorant on, maybe I might whiff a bit. But, you know, it is a luxury generally. But equally, you know, there were a lot of other things which were said yesterday. That was just one item out of about 10 which was picked up, you know, and we are talking about ploughing £650 million into the NHS for Alzheimer's and dementia, which is the biggest killer of women in this country. You know, we're talking about a full wraparound childcare scheme for schools to ensure that more women can get back out to work. We're also talking about supporting the current paternity and maternity leave laws that we have at the moment. So there was a whole raft of things which came out yesterday. Obviously, the one that the media picked up on was the tampon tax.
Of course. But traditionally, UKIP has found it difficult, hasn't it, with the Godfrey Bloom comments about women being the S word and not cleaning behind their fridges. You have had a bad reputation to try and rebuild with women.
Yes, I'm not going to deny that. I do think, though, when Godfrey did say the S word, he meant it in the 1960s fashion.
I don't really care. He still called me one.
You know, I'm not going to defend that, though. I think that has changed, you know, over time. And if you look at...
Have you noticed more women interested in voting UKIP?
Yes, and equally, if you look at UKIP's representation in the European Parliament, a third of our MEPs are women. And we haven't done that through any sort of positive discrimination. I would argue discrimination in any form isn't positive. And we haven't done it through women-only shortlists. Those women have got the jobs because they've been the best people for them.
OK, let's get to your calls. And Anthony is in Fulham. Hello, Anthony.
Hello.
Hello there. Paul Nuttall is here. He's ready for your question.
Paul, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name's Anthony. Tony, I want to know why none of the main parties, including UKIP, have mentioned the state pension and it being below the minimum wage.
Yeah.
What's the position of UKIP?
Yeah, I thought this would come up, and believe it or not, this is one of the only subjects which I can't talk about until next week. I'm sorry about that, because we're going to have a policy launch and we're going to be speaking about it in our manifesto. The only answer I can really give you, Tony, on this at the moment, without giving the game away, is simply that, believe you me, we in UKIP believe that those who've lived in this country, worked in this country, paid their taxes all their lives, should be looked after in later life, and we will genuinely, trust me, look after our pensioners.
Thanks for that.
Thank you,
by the
Tony.
way, I'm a UKIP voter.
Good man.
OK, Anthony, that's costed as well, is it?
Everything we're putting
You're
out,
be spending that big.
Everything we're putting out has been independently costed,
and
to
not
the
costed
penny.
on leaving the EU.
Well, a proportion of it will be. Don't get me wrong.
But you're kind of preempting the voter there, because if the voter says we won't leave, can you still afford to do what
but
you
actually,
say?
we've got to put forward proposals to say, if we do leave, this is what we can do with that money. Let's not forget, at the moment, we're paying 55 million quid a day into this organisation. That 55 million pounds is...
What do we get back?
Tax. Well, we get half of it back. But then they tell us how we can spend our own money. And then we have to put up signs all around London and Liverpool and Manchester and Birmingham, which says, thank the European Union, this project was built with European money. We couldn't have done it without European money. There's no such thing as European money. It's complete nonsense. It's our own taxation. And the other half is building motorways in Romania, sewage systems in Budapest, underground in Warsaw. You know, I'm sorry, it's British taxpayers' money, and charity begins at home.
Ignacio, talking of foreign skills in Britain, or foreign people in Britain, from Windsor. Hello, Ignacio. You have a specific question about migration.
My call. Yeah, so you're right. I'm a European Union citizen that have been living in the UK for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
A few months ago, when your colleague Suzanne Evans was in the show, I asked what would be my status if and when the UK leaves the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
And she explained that by virtue of the current treaties, my rights in the UK would be protected, which was quite reassuring and quite generous of UKIP to adhere to existing treaty. My question is, if nothing really is going to change on the immigration front from where we are today, by the UK leaving the European Union, is it really worth all the risk to the economy and all the additional work of renegotiating many bilateral trade treaties with nations all over the world, just for the sake of saving £15 billion a year, which allegedly the UK benefits in many other ways by being a member of the European Union?
Well, I'll deal with the immigration point first. I mean, if you're in this country, you're here legally, and you've been here a number of years, I'm guessing that you work. Of course, there's absolutely no problem whatsoever. Even if we left, you are here and you will stay. No problem. What we're talking about in the future, after we've left, what we want to see is an Australian points-based system, whereby if you've got the skills that this country requires, yes, please come here and work. Australia do it, Canada do it, it works perfectly well for them, and we see no reason whatsoever why it couldn't work here in this country as well. But to do that, you have to leave the European Union, because one of the pillars of that club is freedom of movement of peoples, and we believe that that is fundamentally wrong and bad for this country. In terms of the risk to the economy, well, look, if we left the EU, we could sign trade deals all over the world with other countries. Now, I want to remind everyone that there is another organisation out there that we turned our back on in the 1970s, which now is growing faster than any other bloc on the planet. It accounts for a quarter of the world's peoples, a quarter of the world's landmass. I think it's around 20% now of global trade. It's called the Commonwealth. And we could sign free trade deals with India, with Australia, with New Zealand, with Canada. Indeed, we could go out and sign these deals with the United States and China and anybody else. But at the moment, whilst we're members of this club, we can't sign our own free trade deals because they do it on our behalf.
I'm sure you went way above and beyond what Ignacio was asking you there, Paul, and I am going to stop you there because we've only got a few minutes.
I was going to come on to the economy then.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, yeah. Let's move on and speak to Philip in Gloucester Road, because, I mean, people want to ask you questions, Paul. They don't want to hear you just banging on.
Hold on. You've invited me on.
I know. We want to get as many people as possible to speak to you, Paul.
Oh, OK.
And you're blocking them. Right. Philip in Gloucester Road, put your question to Paul.
Good afternoon, Paul and Petri.
Afternoon.
My question, Paul, what would UKIP do if you were in power to help resolve the massive housing crisis which is affecting the lives of millions and millions of citizens across the country? And this issue has been building for the last 20 years since I worked as a senior manager in a housing department in central London.
Right, if you can keep that reasonably politically brief.
OK, quickly, the problem that you've got with housing in this country is that we've allowed 3 million people under Labour's time, 97-2010, to come into the country net. There were 300,000, a city the size of Hull, last year come into the country. And at the moment, we're now going to have to build a house for every 7 minutes just to account for open-door immigration into this country. What we would like to see is brown sites built on, not greenfields. We would like to see people given infra redevelopment on brownfield sites, and we believed in brownfield bonds, which would raise £5 billion in this country, and it would take the risk away from the bondholder and onto the government, and we believe that that would allow us to build around 1 million homes.
There you go. And Paul in Bromley, it might be, this is the last call we've got time for, so again, Paul in the studio, if you could keep it reasonably brief. What's your question, Paul?
Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Nice name.
Yes, another one.
I'm a supporter of the National Health Action Party, so my question's about the NHS.
Yeah.
You and Nigel Farage have both made statements against the public provision of the NHS and for privatisation. So can we trust you on the NHS? And when you get into power, will you be doing what you really think as opposed to, what you're saying because you know there's an election coming?
Well, do you know, strangely enough...
You're not accusing him of being a politician.
Well, no, strangely enough, we're a Democratic Party, and we had a debate within the party, and what we landed with, the national executive of the party, is that we want to keep the NHS free at the point of delivery and funded fully through general taxation. And we will...
Previously.
What we were talking...
Was it a mistake, what you said before, or do you really believe it?
Well, actually, let me just briefly tell you what we were talking about previously. At some point in this century, we will have to have a conversation about how we fund the National Health Service. We're getting older, drugs are becoming more expensive, our population is growing massively, and that debate will have to happen. Now isn't the time to have that debate, and as I say, we believe in funding the NHS totally out of taxation and keeping it in public hands.
But God, that was nice and brief.
Thank you.
Blimey. That's it from Paul Nuttall, Deputy Leader of UKIP and MEP for the North West of England. You've been listening to LBC's election call, where you have been hearing from the Deputy Leader of UKIP, Paul Nuttall. Later, the Conservative Francis Maude will join Ian Dale at Drive from 4:30, and we'll be hearing from all the main parties each week in LBC's election call as Britain decides. Keep your calls coming in on your main concerns for the upcoming election. This is LBC in the time now. Thank you, Paul, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
This is LBC in the time now. It's 2:30. And here with the latest news headlines is Ros Unwin.
The Met Police is investigating why it did not respond to an alarm activated on Good Friday in London's Jewellery Quarter, which was raided over Easter. Thieves broke into up to 70 safety deposit boxes in a building in Hatton Garden. It's claimed £200 million